Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. You know the deal. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Also, don't forget, Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, and I will be back Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern Time, with another live stream edition of the show. It's a Therapy Tuesday, folks, and there's a lot of bills are piling up for those Therapy Tuesday sessions, and just Bram and I chatting it out, and you guys bring in some of your questions and comments, and we go from there. So anyway, join us for that. In a minute, I'm going to do my little film review, and it's not going to be as comprehensive in some ways as some of the other ones. Be honest, folks, coming off the red eye is kind of tough. And it's a little bit later on Monday night when I'm taping this. And it's sometimes hard to get through all the film after the red eye because you're coming off about an hour or two sleep and then you go right to work. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to keep your eyes open. And it's funny because a few years ago, I wrote a story, I think it was in 2018, about how do coaches stay awake when they're watching all this film later in the day, late at night. And I wondered that because I'd be sitting in my office at some of these games. You're like, it's just hard and you need another cup of coffee or something around 2 or 3. And how do you do that? And I'm like, well, they're not superhuman. They're not. So it led me to ask a bunch of them. And it was kind of a fun story. Unfortunately, it ran later in the 2018 year when things started to go awry. And but I enjoyed doing it because it's, how do you do it? Because, some people, when Joe Gibbs was here, he's ate a lot of candy. I think it gives you those sugar rushes. Sometimes guys take naps during the day. Some guys drink a lot of caffeine, whether it's coffee, Diet Cokes, whatever. Others would do chewing tobacco. And, there's others would stand at their desk when they're watching film so they wouldn't fall asleep. So there's all sorts of tricks of the trade for that. But it all started because I'd be watching film after some of these red eyes. I'm like, there's no way that they're much different than I am with this because they're working a ton. They're not getting a lot of sleep. And so it's just natural. And even one coach told me that there were times where he would doze off and miss a few plays. Now he would go back and watch what he missed, but he did miss a couple initially. And then you have to go back. So you kind of do that sometimes too, which I do as well. Sometimes, not all the time, but today was kind of tough because again, those red eyes are kind of brutal. And before I get to the some of the film review, and again, I'm going to be doing fourth quarter of Sam Howell and then some of the running back stuff with the reception, with all the receptions. Was that planned? How much of it was by design? Not a lot. And how much of it was an evolution of Sam Howell, and then some good running back routes. They have 2 guys who can run routes pretty well. So I like that they incorporated them, or I like that they were incorporated in some fashion. Also, before I get there, one thing I've seen a lot now, it's been a few good games in a row for the offense ever since that Giants debacle. And now we're getting they need to keep Eric Bieniemy. They need to keep him. The owner needs to tell him this. All right, slow down on that, folks, because here's the thing let's think this out for a minute to see, is that something that that somebody would necessarily want? Yes, the offense is starting to get going and you don't want I know the whole thing is you don't want to have Sam Howell have to learn another offense. However, you also want him in an offense for a while. And then, so if you're going to do that, if you're Josh Harris and you go by analytics, I'm going to be probably quite sure that the analytics will say you hire an offensive-minded head coach. If you do that, do you really think that he's going to say, oh yes, I'm the new offensive-minded head coach. Here, Eric, here are the keys to your offense. Not a chance. Now, is it possible they'd run the same offense? Is it possible he'd want him to stay? Well, sure, anything's possible. But I wouldn't, that's the thing, that you have to let this play out before you start going down the road. The owner has to tell them this. The owner has to do that. No. The owner's going to hire the GM. The GM will hire the coach. And then together, or however it would be, I don't know, who knows how that be, then you hire your staff. But if you're hiring an offensive-minded head coach, that guy's being brought here because of his offensive mind, not, so you're not going to bring him in and then say, here, run this Bieniemy offense. Even if you don't want to, we're going to have you do it. Well, that would make no sense at all. When some of these guys have left here to go become head coaches elsewhere, I remember I talked to him and said, like, are you going to be calling, you about calling plays? Like, well, some of them would say, like, you want to call plays for a couple years and then bring someone else in because they know how hard it is to do both the play calling and being a head coach. But they would also say the reason why they hired me is because of my ability to call plays. Keep that in mind. Then if you have a head coach that comes in here and they're pretty good, then how could conceivably be in the same system for a long time? So look big picture with this one, not just like, oh my gosh, they've had 3 good games in a row. How could they change? It's a long way to go. So slow the roll on that one. Now, of course, if they hire a defensive-minded head coach, then, leave it up to the coach. But the point is, leave it up to the coach, and the owner should not be the one dictating that. This becomes a football decision, and that his strength is hiring some people who then make football decisions. So just, again, slow your roll on that one. But there's some logic behind why you should do that. And that's what I'm trying to provide, because it's not as simple as, oh my gosh, they've been doing well for 3 games. How can they live without this, or how they need to do this? Nope. Just let it play out, and keep in mind, offensive minded head coach will want to run his offense. And there's also, there's no chance that a new head coach is going to come in and then give Bieniemy the sort of authority that he has right now. I mean, he's pretty much dictated their schedule for the entire season, from practices during the week, during training camp, all that stuff. And that's not going to happen. So not with, a new guy's going to kind of want to come in and do his thing, not follow what somebody else he has done. Now, who knows? Then it depends on, do they have a relationship? Do this, blah, blah, blah. Let it play out, and don't assume, and don't lobby for anything. Let the head coach do it. If you get an offensive minded head coach, that's the guy that's going to be running the offense. Simple as that. So let's get to what I want to talk about with the running backs, and then Sam Howell's fourth quarter, and another good showing for Howell in the fourth quarter, and a really good showing overall by the running backs. A combined 11 catches for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just a really nice job by both Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, a sign of what they can do, but also what Howell did as well. So it's all kind of intermingled there. Some of the development is with Howell, just with his eyes, and on the 2 plays to Brian Robinson are an example of that. I mean, both of them they're very similar, where you get flushed up in the pocket, and on the first one, he tucks the ball. It looks like he's going to run, and then two defenders on the outside start to come up, but his eyes are still up. He sees Robinson right along the sidelines, just a nice little sidearm pass, probably goes about 8 or 9 yards. And then Robinson goes untouched from there. It was just a really good job of one guy continuing the route and continuing to basically move away from the defense, and then the other guy delivering a really good throw on the run by using his vision. So and the second one was very similar to that as well. Gets flushed to his left again and starts to run. Linebacker comes up. Boom, there's Robinson, right? So that was the 48-yard gain. And I'll tell you what, Curtis Samuel came over and tried to throw a really good block downfield, just to help him get a few more yards on that play. Unfortunately for them, they only got a field goal out of that possession. And so that, certainly didn't help them, because they could have used those extra 4 points. But that was good. And what draws the defense in those situations is knowing, listen, that 3rd and 23 run that Howell had against the Patriots is going to be in the minds of every defensive player in the secondary or the linebackers as they go forward. So they're going to come up pretty hard. On the one, it was, was it a 1st and 10? I forget, but I know you needed 10 yards for a first down. I think it was a 1st and 10. So they're already coming up pretty hard to get him, and it leaves the guy open. So that threat of what he can do on the move, word gets around, tape gets around. And that helps open up some stuff for him, I'm sure. I also think that some of of those 11 catches, by the way, those combined ones, I'd say 3, maybe 4, you could say, were design calls. The rest were just either check downs or just the plays I just described, scramble plays where Howell just kept his vision, and he does a good job finding one or both of them at times. I think one of the things that I've liked with Howell over the last several weeks, only a combined 7 sacks, which is a dramatic improvement over what was going on early in the year. And it's one reason why, while he's still on pace to break the sack record held by David Carr, it's now going to take 17 games for him to get there, versus before it would probably taken about 13. Because at one point he was on pace for over 97 sacks, I think. And just after the last 3 weeks, now it's on pace for just over that. But it's, the percentage is going down, and that's a really good sign for him. And some of it, I think you saw here. And I think there are definitely times where you wonder, is he leaving that pocket too soon? So I think that's something you have to wonder, because there are a couple of times where, maybe you could argue that case. In general, though, you wonder if by him being more aware of that yes, sometimes you may leave early. On the other hand, it may save you a couple of times from maybe some sacks. So I think that's a good thing as well. And so I think, that's a positive development for him. And it's why I think that some of those sack numbers are going down. I think he's definitely anticipating a little bit better where that pressure is coming from. And again, sometimes he may not always be right on it exactly, but I think it puts him in the mode of getting out of there when he can. Because there have been times in the past when I even talked to some of the coaches about this, where did he, because I haven't seen this in a while, but did he always look ready to maybe escape? And sometimes you might be a little bit flat-footed, and then when the pressure's finally on him, well, now it's too late. And he wasn't quite ready to react the way maybe you'd need to in order to get out of there. So that's something that I think that's been a nice improvement. There are a couple of times where, you weren't, like when he got to the running backs, that maybe it wasn't the best choice. There's one time he gets flushed to the left. I think he's got John Bates. It could have been like a 10-yard gain. There was a gap. He just sat in a zone area. Instead, he goes to Robinson on the left, who gets about 1 yard. And it just, I think certainly Bates would have been the better choice there. It happens. He had one of the called plays was a screen to Robinson. Chris Paul does not get his block outside, so ends up only getting, I think, a yard. That's the one thing with Paul, is that he's stout inside, can move guys, not as good in space. And on this play, if he gets his block, then Robinson has a chance to get some pretty good yards out of that. So another one that was in the fourth quarter was a 16-yard gain. And I love this one because whether it's an option route or if it's designed just to go inside, what I really like is the linebacker. So Robinson's coming out of the backfield. There's a couple of things I like here. Robinson coming out of the backfield. First of all, Robinson is a good pass catcher. And you watch him, his hands are really good. And what I like too is the way he's now learning, where he has learned to set guys up. And I think you saw that here. Linebacker has outside leverage. Now he's forcing him inside, which is, it's funny because we've talked about this with Jamin Davis before. These guys, especially, and I think any team, you want to force them to the outside, because that's where it's just, you get it over the middle, you have a chance for a big gain. And that's what happened here. And so, the best thing to do is you try to force them outside, but the linebacker's a little bit wide, and Robinson comes up, creates even more of an opening because of his little move. And, I think that is something that was very impressive to just the route. And you see it, like I'm putting up some screenshots of that now, but you see where Robinson comes up on the linebacker, and all it takes is a little bit of, just kind of like, just a little move, boom, boom. And now he's cut to the inside, and now he's got 5 years of separation. Just an excellent job by Robinson. I also like the patience that Howell shows on there. Now he's not under complete duress. The line does give him time. It's starting to shrink a little bit, but this is why I like that, though, because after all the hits and sacks he's taken this year, it has not affected his play in the pocket. It's kind of amazing. And, I remember and again, I'm going to have a story about this later in the week, but I talked to Kurt Warner about some of this and just how young quarterbacks, a lot of times you go through the hits and the sacks and all that, and it does affect you, and you can speed things up without even realizing it. And are you getting to your drop too soon and just holding the ball too long because you're getting to your drop too soon because you know that, oh, I've got to speed this up. His attitude was always, and it was hard for a quarterback, easier said than done. You got to play the play. So in other words, if the 3 plays before this, you get sacked, it doesn't matter on the 4th one. You've got to play that play. You can't let the other ones affect your thought process. Easier said than done. But what I like about Howell is he has not let it affect him in the pocket. He still stands in there. He still looks for big plays. I just think he's doing a better job of getting out of there and getting out into the open space where he can really do some damage with his arm and with his legs and hurt you. So I think but in this play, I like the patience he shows. He waits till Robinson makes the moves, gets out in the open, boom, go. And then, so here's the other thing too. This is going to be a couple of things. Percy Butler gets criticized for missing a tackle, and I criticize him too because and listen, Ron Rivera told us today is like I agree with this, that Percy Butler made some nice plays the other day. It was a good help, big help in the run game, but the one play he missed was a tackle on Kenneth Walker on that touchdown, the catch and run. You make the play and it's an 8 or 9 yard gain. First of all, Danny Johnson doesn't slip. It's a 5 or 6 yard gain. But then Percy Butler misses the tackle. And unfortunately for him, for the perception of his game, he had been playing pretty well to that point, but he missed that tackle. And you get criticized for it. Well, on this play, it was Devin Witherspoon who missed the tackle on Brian Robinson. Witherspoon was one of my favorite players in the draft, and it was certainly, I know people here, was one of their favorite players in the draft too. The point is, it happens. Now, didn't result in a touchdown on this play for Washington, whereas it did for Seattle. What was I thinking? And, so that's the problem. And last week against the Patriots, it also resulted in a touchdown. So that's the difference. But guys miss tackles, and Witherspoon, I'd take him in a heartbeat. Anyway, and then, so that was just a really good play by him there. And then with Gibson, what I like too, is there's a 3rd and 13. The one play, there's a 3rd and 13 where you wonder if Terry McLaurin is open. He's running, and I really like this concept. It was 2 deep safeties, and you have Terry McLaurin is running a deep post from the right side, but you have Curtis Samuel running across and attacking the safety on the other side, right? So the safety would be on the defense's right side, and that's that by him coming, running almost like a deep over, that takes the safety out of the equation where now McLaurin's got a shot down the field if Howell can get him the ball. Now he appears to be looking down there, getting some penetration inside from the interior, and you wonder, like, did that affect that and prevent him from looking down there? Instead, it's a 3rd and 13. He checks it down to Gibson. Again, no sack, but that was a chance for, if the line could have been a little bit more stout in that was a chance for a big play because the concept was there, and it did get him open. Another one, there's the 3rd and 4 where Gibson gained 7 yards. Really, whether or not that was designed to go right to Gibson, I don't know. What I do know is it was an immediate read and throwing it to him. So, I think just based on the coverage, you could tell that it was going to be man coverage, and it was Jamal Adams was going to be on Gibson, and he was playing back deep, almost like a deep half, not quite, probably about 10 to 15 yards, but that's enough for Gibson to get that 7 yards, especially with an immediate throw. Again, another good job by Howell and a good run by Gibson for the first down. Linebacker blitzes on that play. And, so that I think, yeah. So that, I think, you see what you're reading linebacker on the tight end, and you just knew that it was going to be there. And so it was. Another one, there's a 3rd and 10. You have, this is a 3rd and 10 where he gets 9 yards, sets up the 4th and 1 where Howell converts it with the pass slant to McLaurin. 5-man rush, 53. Mauier. I'm sorry, Boye Mafe. That name always gives me a hard time, but he's a good player. And so on this one, he runs a stunt to the inside, and Howe gets pushed to the right, and just a little dump off to Gibson, who gets 9 yards in the play. Um, and just, good awareness and eyes by Howe, and good job by Gibson. So the point is, it wasn't like they're sitting there saying, "Oh, we've got to get the running backs involved in the pass game. We've got to do this." Most of the plays were not designed for them. It was just a byproduct of the play itself, or the action itself, or the pressure he's getting and the checkdowns, and giving them a chance to run with the ball as well. I mean, certainly some of those ones are with the eyes, but again, the threat of Howe running is a real danger for teams. And then the last one to Gibson was, so again, I said it just with Witherspoon, there's narratives and perceptions that happen when you win or when you lose. And for the Seahawks, I know, like, listen, I've been a big Bobby Wagner fan for a long time. I know people would say, "Oh, they should get a guy like that," and ripping on David Mayo. And listen, I'm tired of saying listen. So pay attention. But with Mayo, we all know what he's a backup special teamer who's very good against the run and struggles against the pass. We know that. But guys make mistakes too. And in this one, Bobby Wagner gets burned by Gibson. And Wagner has been a great player for a long time. But the point is, it happens. And I'm not comparing Mayo to Wagner, trust me. I'm just telling you that guys make mistakes out there. When you win, it's not as glaring as when you lose. And that's the difference in this one, right? But on this one, it was just a really nice job by Gibson coming out of the backfield, just basically running it straight down. But he uses almost like a little, I'd say swim move, but maybe it's a doggy paddle move. Just kind of knocks the hands away. But what it does is then he kind of knocks the hand and kind of pops out and creates more space, and Wagner gets a little bit lost. And then Gibson catches the ball, and Wagner's nowhere near him. So it's an easy touchdown for Gibson. Also on that play, Howell's getting his arm hit on the play. And I'm like, I watch it time again. It's like, I don't know how he got that off, but he did. And he wasn't able to really follow through on the throw. So it makes the throw even more impressive. Initially, I wondered if that ball had been hit. It wasn't, but it was just so odd. I mean, you go back and watch, and I'm putting some of the shots up now about that. And it was certainly a very, very impressive throw, because he couldn't follow through. So anyway, so the point of all this is that it wasn't like they went into the game saying, "We've got to get the running backs involved." It evolved that way. There were some design calls, and then there were some times where it's like, this is just where you have to go with the ball, whether it's a scramble drill or a check down or whatever. But I think a lot of it highlights Howell's growth, because the some of the big plays result from, again, the ability to get at to maneuver. And I also, give credit to the pocket too, because the pocket, there were times where they're creating a pocket where he has options where he can step up and go, or at least enough of a gap in there where you can get out of something. And a lot of that comes back to the interior. If the interior can do a good job being very stout inside, then that gives them more options. And that's why in the offseason, no matter who's here next year, you strengthen that interior by a good amount, right? So I think that would be a number one priority for me. I know the tackles, right? But I think if you have a shorter quarterback like Sam Howell, you want that strong interior and a guy who can get out of things. I think you may want to have that, not diminishing tackle at all, but I'm just saying, I think you want to strengthen that. And it's what I heard all off season about the New Orleans Saints, what they did with Breeze. Well, they failed to do that here, but they've been getting better production out of that, of the interior lately since the changes. But I think I would continue to bolster that, make it more consistent, and get some guys in here. And that's why, listen, in the second round, I said it again. In the second round, there were guys there, a couple of guards there that they could have taken, Mock or Cyrus Torrance, that certainly would have been able to help and probably be playing right now had they done so, and would be a big part of their future. Because right now, you look at the line, like, how many of those guys do you think will be starting there next year? And there's probably not a lot. So Anyway, but that's what I do. So build that strong interior for Howell because the size, gives them a little bit more room to see, but also because of quickness. If you get those ends rushing upfield, if you can be pretty good inside, then you can create gaps for him to get through, whether it's find a passing lane or a little running alley to extend plays, and that's a big help as well. But I think, it's funny because they do a pretty good job chipping on the ends, and so that's why you wonder, like, will teams continue to send more pressure inside? And the whole thing with the sacks with Howell, and I'm going to get to his play in a minute. The whole thing's with the sacks with him too. It's great job lately. It's not just him too. The pass protection will be challenged. And they're going to be challenged this week against the Giants. They're going to be challenged the next week against the Dallas Cowboys. They have the Dallas Cowboys again later in December. They also have, at the end of the season, they also have the San Francisco 49ers, who have a good pass rush. They're going to face Aaron Donald in a few weeks. So there's a lot that they're going to have to, Bradley Chubb. So there's a lot they're going to have to go against to see. And I think this is going to be a great measuring stick down the stretch for where Howell is at with everything. And that's why I think it's important that he's learning some of these things now, even if, again, he sometimes gets out of there a little bit soon. I still think that's okay for him because he's making plays when he does that, not just looking to run. He's looking to make a play. And I think that's a good thing as well. And that's, again, I go back to the Kurt Warner stuff, and like, that's one of the things you cannot coach is looking downfield to make those big plays. And it's much easier to kind of tame some of them than it is to build that into somebody. I'll say this, if those of you who remember John Beck, this is Sam Howell. Like, he was sacked 10 times against Buffalo. The next week he had 75 checkdowns to Roy Halou. You don't see that from Howell. You see a guy still playing his game, just at a better pace. And I think that's why I think people should be that's among the reasons people should be encouraged. Anyways, some thoughts on his fourth quarter. So a couple stats. He has the most touchdown passes in the fourth quarter with 6 in the NFL. He has the most passing yards in the fourth quarter. I think it's 788. He also has the 9th highest rated quarterback rating in the fourth quarter in the NFL. In 2 games against the Eagles, he threw for a combined 234 yards in the fourth quarter. He had 109 against Seattle and 2 touchdowns. Very impressive. I mean, he led two game-tying scoring drives against the Seahawks. And if the defense hadn't blown it, then you go to overtime. And I know there's a lot of talk about the 2-point conversion. You make it, even if you make it, the Seahawks, they're going to be more aggressive going after it because now you have no choice. When it's tied, you can kind of, you take your shots. And then you see, some coaches would have gone for it regardless to try and win that game in that situation. But if you're down, you're certainly going to be a lot more aggressive. Whatever. Point is that 2-point conversion didn't cost them the game. You can talk all you want about should he or should he not. Did you like his explanation? Did you not? Fine. That's fine. But just saying that if they had done it and gone for it, like as opposed to Philly, if they had gone for it and made it, game's over. Same thing in New York a few years ago. You go for it, game's over. And so, like, in this case, game would not have been over, but in a lot of time, and the Seahawks had been very aggressive, more aggressive than they were. And for whatever that's worth, I don't even, they have a lot bigger problems than that decision. But again, so the other thing, I brought up the narrative stuff, and this is how close things get to changing narratives, because Howell's been really good in the fourth quarter. Even in a really good fourth quarter, and even as a guy who's done really well in the fourth quarter, he got away with 2 throws the other day that would have changed the narrative completely. They were down on the 1 by a touchdown. He almost throws a pick 6. In fact, the defender I think it was a defensive back, fakes a blitz, and it was a clear fake. I mean, it was not, you could kind of tell the guy's not coming. It was just a fake, but you got to get the ball outside quick. And I think the guy looks like the guy tips it. If he doesn't, then I think it's a pick 6. So it's a good thing that ball was tipped, because the defender covering the receiver was right there and was stepping inside. It would not have been a very pretty situation. And then what is said is that, like, Kirk Cousins earned a reputation because those plays were made against him. They were not made against Howell. And so now that's a good thing, but it's just one. But again, that stuff happens. And bad plays come close to happening. It's like a long foul ball that misses by a foot for a home run. Hey, in the score, and In the record books, that pass was an incompletion. The record books, it's a foul ball. That's it. And so it didn't hurt you, but it shows you how close sometimes those narratives are to changing. And there was another one too on the play before the touchdown pass to De'Ami Brown. How steps up, delivers the ball to Byron Pringle, and it was a high throw. He's running up, he's not able to set, and so the ball just kind of sails on him. And if it doesn't sail, I wonder if the guy on Pringle picks that off, or at least certainly knocks it away. It skips over Pringle's head, and there's a safety back there who has to lunge to his right, who almost makes that play. Does not make it. Again, long incompletion. Got away with it, but it just shows you how close. It's hard to play this game, and it's hard to be really, really good. And I think these are some examples, because those plays go against you. Now it taints you, but they didn't, and he ends up throwing a touchdown pass anyways. I do think, like I said, I think he's doing a better job at feeling the pressure. And I think that will help him in the long run. And I'm curious to see where it goes with all these numbers. Like I said, the sack percentage, it's going down. That's a really good thing. If he can get it by the end of the season into that 8 range, that bodes well for next year, especially with what they have coming up. I mean, you're talking about some pretty good pass rushers coming up. There's, yeah, and some of these plays I went over with the Gibson, with the running back, so I don't need to go over there with all that. I also liked, there was one time with 2 minutes left, he doesn't force it. I think he understood time and down and distance situation. There's 2 minutes left. I think it was their own 48, and it's 1st and 10. Doesn't force the ball, and I think that's smart. I remember when Gus Frerotte first started his game. God bless. If you guys remember watching Gus, thank you. But in his first start against Indianapolis, I remember after that week, or a few days later, talking to Sonny Jurgensen in the lobby at then was named Redskin Park, and just asked him ask him about Ferrotte's game, what he thought about it. He said some of his best throws were incompletions. And I think this one is another example of that. Nobody's there. Could you have forced one? Probably, but you didn't need to, and he didn't. He threw it away. He lived to play another down. It was 1st and 10. Understand down a distance situation, 2 minutes left, but somebody who gets kind of caught up in the moment, maybe they try to force it to play hero ball. He knew it didn't have to do it then, and he doesn't do it. I think, again, the protection gave him some gaps and the ability to move up in the pocket. That's a good thing. On the throw to De'Ami Brown, that's exactly what happened. He had 4.08 seconds to throw that ball. Now, you could say when you first watch the play, it looks like he could have hit his plant step, and you have De'Ami Brown is on to his left down the field. He's in a zone gap. He could have hit him there, definitely. But certainly, clearly wasn't sure. And it's funny because it almost reminded me a little bit of some of the play, I think, where I can't remember if it was an interception against Denver or just a knockdown in the red zone, but it was it was the interception against Arizona and almost against Denver. And I don't know if that's in the back of his head, because it was I don't know that it was exactly the same play, but the drop and the gap between the receiver and the defensive back or the defender was somewhat similar. I'm not saying it was the same play. I wonder if he was reminded of that a little bit and was a little bit hesitant, but he then makes a tougher throw to De'Ami and just kind of guides him to a spot. And you have two guys that they're converge, and it just goes right over their hands. But what it does do is, intentionally or not, or unintentionally, it did give De'Ami Brown a little more chance to run with it after the catch. If they throw it to him right away initially, he's probably not going to get a lot after the catch. Well, this time he got a touchdown out of it. And so that, obviously is what you want, but apparently there was too much time left on the clock. But another good job, again, of using the time you have, because again, they gave him 4.08 seconds on that play, and he took advantage of it, and he was very patient, and then delivers a highly accurate throw in a very clutch situation. Also on that play, one of the things I thought that helped, and I put up a screenshot of the end of the play where it looks like, Leno's guy is like right there, right by Howell. That's over 4 seconds that it took to get there. Part of that reason is because Logan Thomas threw a vicious chip on the guy, knocks him several yards back or to the side, and it gives Leno just that ability to just stay in front of him. And that if somehow that had been something resulted in a sack or something like that, that would not have been on Leno because, again, 4.08 seconds, but that's the credit to the line. And there was room there, and it's just a really, really nice pocket. And I think, that enabled him to make the throw. Anyways, what I like about Howell in the fourth quarter is that it's everything you like about him elsewhere. But when you're in that situation, you have to really understand the down and distance, and just knowing how to operate and manage the situation. I think he did that pretty well. Did get away with a couple possible miscues, but again, it was just a long strike, man. Didn't hurt him. But sometimes those balls bounce a different way, and another game maybe it does. But he's been playing very well in the fourth quarter, and I just you look at it and say, why is that? Well, it's all the same reasons that we've seen. The eyes stay upfield, the poise in the pocket. All those things translate very well in the fourth, which is why, in college, when he was a freshman, he was leading comebacks. When he was first starting for North Carolina, he was leading comebacks against very good college teams because of the poise, the demeanor, his smarts, understanding the down and distance, the situation, and telling coaches like, hey, we're going to come back. Don't worry. Things like that. I mean, that goes a long way for people, but it's also why that ability to stay calm in there and have the ice water in your veins is a big deal for a quarterback, and he's got that. So I think, again, you look at the play against Philadelphia to Jahan Dotson, just a bullet to him, good catch, but just a decisive throw, knowing exactly where he was going to go because of the coverage and who was covering, et cetera. So kid's doing pretty well, man, isn't he? And I do think that was a good job by the running backs. I think Brian Robinson I think they both do a nice job. And I think Antonio Gibson's been playing very well the last couple weeks. I've been saying this, but it's just a shame that the way the defense is trended, given where the offense is starting to go, it could have been a fun finish. Now, doesn't mean it can't be, because you never know. We know that. But it's just, that's why the Chicago, the Giants, and those are way worse than what happened Sunday. But because of those games, you really need Sunday. But it's just a shame because the offense is starting to show a lot of things that are very good and you can build off of. And that clutch gene in the fourth quarter is a big one for Howell and for this franchise. Anyways, that's all I got. Remember, 7:30 live stream show Tuesday night with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. So that's really less than what? It'll be later today when you listen to this. So anyway, folks, I'll talk to you next time.